Hello there. I'd like to talk a little about comping from a non-pianist point of view. I'd also like this lesson to be playable by anyone with a moderate knowledge of scales, theory, and technique on the piano. Comping is a whole science in itself, and as a composer or arranger, you should try to familiarize yourself with the different techniques used. This includes playing the melody while comping behind yourself, left-hand comping during your own soloing on the piano, shell voicings, and two-handed voicings, including the voicings that don't have the root of the chord as a bass note, or rootless voicings. The advantage of the piano is that notes are laid out in front of you and the possibilities are endless, and available in a fashion that is less linear than on the trumpet or many other brass, woodwind, and string instruments. To truly cover this would take several semesters, but I'll try to give you a general idea of how this can be approached in a way that is palatable and easy to comprehend. So to make things easy, we'll go through these voicings 4 bars at a time. The first 2 bars are E half diminished to A7 sharp 5. And they're played like this. The first chord, E half diminished, the reason it works is it's a Locrian scale. It's a Locrian scale for F major. Now this A7 voicing, where does that come from? This comes from the A altered scale, which is also called diminished whole tone scale. The reason being is the first 4 notes are diminished and the second 4 notes are whole tone, like so. Diminished, whole tone. If you start A altered on its 2nd degree, you'll get B flat minor major 7. If I play that in thirds, it would look like this. So we have a B flat minor on the bottom and an F major triad on top. And that's where this awesome voicing comes from. It could also be played like this. Or maybe you want to end on a C instead of a B flat. The D minor voicing begins like this, and then goes to A7 plus, and back to D minor. And that's not always what the horn player is thinking, but what a piano player will do to create movement instead of just a static chord of a D minor for 2 bars. Without that, the phrase sounds a little stiff. It would sound like this. As opposed to this. The next 4 bars are G minor 7 to C9 to F major 6/9, and then E half diminished 7 to an A plus sharp 9. It sounds like this. So the first voicing is very simple. It's a G minor 7 voicing, going to C7, the lowest note, the F goes to an E. Now we have a C7. We have the 3rd, the flat 7th, the 9th, and the 13th. Now if I was arranging for horns, I wouldn't do this. I'm putting in a 5th note. Often in my voicings, I'm trying to think of what the top note would be, and then I form my voicing to that. So now we've got C9. To get to an F major 6/9, we only move one finger. The B flat moves to an A. And then a quick E half diminished 7 to A7 sharp 9. Now I could have just as easily put in an F major triad, but I wanted to keep the voicing sparse, 4 notes and 4 notes. Next we have D minor to G minor 7 to B flat 7 to E half diminished to A7 plus 5. Now this is based on the So What voicings Bill Evans and others had constructed, which is E minor to D minor. These are very open voicings, chordal voicings. I really enjoy playing like this. We have E, A, D, G, all fourths, and then a 3rd on top to B. To D minor, same thing. We have all fourths, and then a major 3rd on top. Now if you're playing D minor, you could use these 2 voicings over D minor. Why does that work? If we have a D minor and we keep extending it up in thirds, we have E minor over D minor. So anytime you have a 2 minor, you could also play the 3 minor. So they're both in the key of C major, and they both belong to the 2 minor of D. So our voicing at letter B is like this. The next 2 bars are B flat 7 and then E half diminished to A7 sharp 5. This is an interesting voicing. It's a B flat 7 with the root on top. A lot of piano players don't play 2 5s all the time. They may just play the dominant chord. So we're going to do the same. We're going to play a B flat 13 to an A plus 7. So here we've got B flat 7 with the root on top to A7 plus 5, and just moving and in the voicing the plus 5 to a 5. The next 4 bars are D minor to G7 sharp 11 to E half diminished to A7 sharp 5. And they sound like this. The first 2 bars. This is a voicing I use for D minor quite a bit. And then we're playing a G7 plus 11. I want to get the plus 11 in, which is C sharp. And the top note used for the D minor, the A, I'd like it to be the root of the G7. I could play it and use it as the ninth, but I like the movement, both as a piano voicing and as an arranger. As opposed to that's fine, I just like the movement. The next two bars, E half diminished to A7 plus flat 9. Now for the second A section, beginning at letter C, we have an interesting voicing for E half diminished. The next four bars are E half diminished to A7 plus 5 to D minor, just as in letter A in the first A section. What's interesting about the first voicing is that it's the same voicing I would use for a C7. So we have F major, we have E half diminished, based on the F major scale, starting on the 7th degree. And starting on the 5th degree of F major, we have C dominant. So for E half diminished, we could use the voicing for C7. That's a very common rootless voicing for C7. So we're playing E half diminished as a C7. Now going to an A7. We're using an upper structure. It's the upper structure flat 6th. So you see for the A7 we have the flat 7th and the 3rd. And here we're using an F triad. So we're starting on the flat 6th or the sharp 5th. And we're sliding up to the 6th. Pretty cool. Now we go to the D minor. We have the root in the top. It's a basic D minor voicing, rootless, and we're putting in a 5th note for fun, the D, the root. Now we're going back to the so what voicings, E minor and D minor. Remember, it's all 4ths, then a major 3rd. But we're going to skip the major 3rd this time and leave it out, just for the sake of voice leading. So we have E minor going to D minor. So as far as the D minor, it sounds like this. And the first 4 bars of letter C in tempo sound like this. Next we have G minor 7 to C7 to F major and E half diminished to A9. The voicing for G minor 7, on the bottom we're going to have the flat 3rd and on top the flat 7th. That being the flat 3rd B flat and the flat 7th F. So here we have G minor going to C7. So what we're doing with the C7 is just as in the very first 2 bars of the piece, when we played E half diminished to A7, it looked like this. Now we're doing the same exact thing in another key. Instead of E half diminished, we're starting on G minor. Now for the next two bars, we're going to F major 7 and then E half diminished to A9. The piano is playing a C+7 flat 9 for movement in between F major. So you're not playing F major for 4 beats. Then instead of playing the E half diminished 7, we're going right to A7. This is something pianists do sometimes. So that will sound like this. All together, those 4 bars sound like this. Now this last chord is kind of odd because the melody is A to B to C sharp, which is a little conflicting with what we have. We have an F major triad. Now if you listen to what's going on with the melody, we're playing A, B, C sharp. I would never do this if I was arranging for 5 horns. Hear that? But if you're comping as a pianist, it actually sounds fine. Now we're reaching the final leg of our journey. The next 4 chords at letter D are D minor, G minor 7, B flat 7, and E half diminished to A7. I decided to quote the melody on the piano along with the flugelhorn here, just to strengthen it, and it has quite a unique effect. Here I'm using a shell voicing for the D minor. For the G minor 7, I'm using F, B flat, and D. The flat 7th, the flat 3rd, and the 5th. So I'm using a rootless voicing here. Now for the B flat, sharp 11, I'm using a shell chord in the left hand and playing the 3rd in the sharpened 11th in the right hand. And the bottom 3 notes just slip down a half step. I retain the E for the melody. Now the final 4 bars begin with the so what voicings. The final 4 bars are D minor, B flat to A7 2 beats apiece, D minor 4 bar, and E half diminished to A7 to kick off the soloist. So we start with the so what voicing, the chordal voicings with a 3rd on top, to the B flat 7. This is also a chordal voicing, but the lower notes, A flat and D, are not a perfect 4th. When I say it's a chordal voicing, it's within a B flat 7 scale. The rest of the notes are perfect 4ths. So we've got the 7th, the 3rd, the 13th, the 9th, and the 5th. That's B flat 13. And then we slide down a half a step to A13, to D minor 7. We use the flat 3rd and the flat 7th in the left hand. In the right hand we use the 9th, the 5th, and the root. Then a quick 2/5 of E, half diminished 7 to A7. And you've seen this before. We have E half diminished, all in the scale of F major or E Locrian, to an A7, flat 9, sharp 5. And that sets up the soloist for what he's going to play after the melody. Thanks for watching. I hope this takes away some of the mystery and makes the piano more of a tool for you to use. If you have any questions or comments, don't hesitate to ask in the comments section below. Also, feel free to subscribe to my channel for updates on my newest jazz video lessons.